In 2007, my life changed dramatically. I became the target of a stalker. And this is part one of my story of survival and awareness. Okay. I had to, write down parts, segment it to make sure that I didn't leave out some important parts. It's actually part one of about 20 different parts. So in 2007, I became a target again of a stalker. And I would say I was about 33 years old, and I was newly divorced. And that's when all hell, literally, all hell broke loose. So be patient with me, because I am reliving some of these traumatic events in order to share this story. So how did the stalking begin? It began with me getting a divorce. I did not know what stalking was. I honestly never heard of stalking, so I didn't know I was being stalked, didn't have a clue. How I found out I was being stalked was the president of the association in my neighborhood. He came to tell me that my ex-husband was stalking me. Okay, let's see. What I didn't notice was him following me at first. However, I would consider myself, before that, very aware. I have always been aware of my surroundings. Somehow, I missed this was going on. And I guess it was because when I would come home in the evenings, I would go straight in my garage and I would close the door. Oblivious, after I get home, what was going on the outside. Well, come to find out, my ex-husband was jumping my fence. I had no clue all of this was going on. The neighbors across the street saw everything that was going on, but no one came and talked to me. No one came and told me anything. It was just, everything was going outside of the talk, but nobody was coming to me until the president of the association of the neighborhood came and told me. He said, "Look, I'm not sure if you're aware of what is going on." And I wasn't. He said, "Look, your ex-husband is jumping your fence. During the night, he's coming, checking your mail. And it's just a lot of bizarre things that are going on." He says, "So I want you to be vigilant, be aware of your surroundings." Again, I did not have a clue about what stalking was, what it entailed, until, again, everything just broke loose. After that, me becoming aware of what was going on became my number one priority. I started receiving crazy text messages, phone calls all during the night, phone calls back to back. At work, my personal desk phone was ringing off the hook. It was just a non-stop, event. It was something that was consistent. In that, I had to let people at work, my supervisors and everything, know what was going on, because he was starting to cause trouble where they were looking at me like, what is going on with your personal business? You're here at work. You cannot mix the two. Again, I was oblivious to what stalking was, what it entailed. So He started showing up at my job unexpectedly. I would walk out if I'm going to lunch or if I'm going to my car. He was consistently riding through the parking lot. He was just circling the building. I noticed that he was following me. I became very paranoid. It was a very traumatic experience. I can say that. It disrupted my entire life. I had to change my routing of how and where I went. I had to change the way I went home. I could no longer take my regular route to work, to anywhere I was going. I had to change my routes. I had to be aware of my surroundings. I had to alert my job of what was going on. I had to change the church that I would go to, because he would, now the entire time that we were married, he barely went to church with me. He was Baptist, I was Catholic. And so when I would go on my Saturdays to church, being Catholic, he would never go. Then he started showing up at the church. So I had to change churches of, where I went. It was just, so here I am hopping around to various churches, just to get my word in, just so that he couldn't find me. Eventually, when it became too much, I had to alert the authorities. Mentally, I was all over the place. It disrupted my sleep patterns. I could not eat. Again, I was paranoid. I secluded myself. I distanced myself. I can say, being 33, I had to adapt to a new entire way of living. I am a very free-spirited person. I am a loner. I am an only child. So I was used to doing things by myself, going out to eat, going to the movies, and so forth. That could no longer happen because I did not know the mental state of how my ex-husband where his mental state was. I had never experienced that side of him, to even think that he would take it this far of stalking me. I mean, everything, it was just so brand new to me. It was such a shock, because never in a million years would I have thought that this man could not take rejection, or could not take the fact that our marriage was over and to move on. You just could have never paid me $1 million to believe that this would be, excuse me, that this would be his behavior. And I still can't to this day think about, this was his behavior. This was my life. This was what my life has started to become, of being paranoid, of always having to be aware of my surroundings. I had to alert everyone around me, because again, I didn't know his state of being. I did not know what he would do, because he was coming so hard. The phone calls, the text messages. Again, he was circling my house. He was jumping my fence. Okay. It was a lot. And to say that I had never heard of stalking, it was a lot. Trust and believe. I would not wish stalking on my worst enemy. It was a traumatic experience for me. Stalking isn't always dramatic like the movies. However, it is consistent, unwanted attentions that wears you down emotionally and mentally. When I tell you I had to end up on medication because I became severely depressed, I had a high state of anxiety, having to adapt my life to a new way of living really affected me mentally, because I was no longer allowed by my friends and my family. I was no longer allowed to go anywhere by myself. If I did go somewhere, I couldn't roam freely like I did beforehand. And I know people were very concerned about me, and you know, they cared about me. But being a loner, being a free-spirited person, it was just a new way for me to live that I was not accustomed to in being a stalking victim. In alerting the authorities, there were steps that I had to take in order to prove that I was being stalked. Yes, there are steps that you have to take to prove that you are being stalked. Stalking, what does stalking look like? What it looked like for me was a consistent following, text messages, consistent, when I tell you consistent calling from my cell phone. At that time I had a home phone as well as cell phone. My work phone, he was calling friends to get to me. Consistent writing around my home, my job, anywhere I was going, I would see him. He would just pop up everywhere. He was circling my job. He would pop up at my church. It was just like anywhere I would go. It could be the grocery store, in the parking lot. I would see him. Just somehow, miraculously, he was there. Again, this is part 1 of almost a part 20 survival story of how and what I had to endure in being a stalking victim. It's based on survival, and it's based on awareness for others to understand what stalking is, what it consists of, how do you protect yourself, you know, your story of endurance, perseverance, and the things that you have gone through. It took a long time for me to get to where I am. My stalking lasted a good 10 years. I mentally would not wish that on my worst enemy. It is not something anyone should go through. If you feel that you are being stalked, please seek help. Use your resources. Call the Domestic Violence Center. Alert the authorities. Tell your family, your friends. Don't let anyone think that you're crazy. If you believe you are being stalked, if you believe someone is following you, take extra precautionary steps to protect yourself. Again, thank you for listening, and tune in to part 2 of my story of being a stalking survivor, because that's what I am, a stalking survivor. Thank you for listening. Please like, comment, and subscribe to my YouTube channel. Until next time, I'll see you all later. Bye.